Alrighty, this is the Astro Observers for October 2021 observing reports. And as we were just talking before we hit the video here, October wasn't the greatest month for observing. I only got one night out, and just because of weather conditions. I talked about this in Galaxy Log, in the newest Galaxy Log, thinking that would be, October is usually here in the Northeast pretty good for observing, and unfortunately for the dark window, it was only one night, and that's what I'll be talking about here for a few objects that I viewed that night. And I had out the Skywatcher Evil Star 120 f7.5 ED Apo. And I have the upgraded focuser, which I really like a lot. Really like the scope. I think an ED Apo for visual observing is really a sweet spot, and for refractors, better than an achromat, and not as expensive as a triplet, but still has that type of quality where it just brings in just razor sharp images, high contrast. And even though it's a 4.7 inch, not even 5 inches, it can go deep. It can go deep. And this was one of the first objects that I observed that night. Was October 1st. We were out together, Rob. It was a refractor night. And this is really, actually, this is one of my favorite objects in Lyra. Actually, it's one of my favorite globs, even though it's not a big glob like M13 or M5 or M92 or M22 and so on. It lies in this really rich field. And I had a 12mm eyepiece in there, which gave 75 magnification. So it had this big, rich field of foreground stars. And then, of course, you have this globular sitting out there. And the 4.7 actually was resolving some stars in it, actually resolved it pretty well. And just made for an overall great view of for that night. Rob, have you seen this in your refractor? Did you? I don't know if
I have. And it's funny because I used to star hop to that with my 10-inch from my deck, and I always thought it was always so cool because it's not a real bright glob,
right?
But it's so pretty where, like you said, where it sits, and I think it's a very underrated,
right,
and overlooked glob. So yeah, it's a really neat object.
Right. This was actually one of my favorite objects to view when I had the Beast, the 8-inch refractor. It was just just a marvelous, resolved it really well. It was actually similar, less color like that, but very similar to what the view you see here. It was just spectacular. We see all those foreground stars of the Milky Way, and then this, like I said, this beautiful glob in the background. But even though it's not an 8-inch refractor, the 4.7 actually did really well, and it really looked nice with this 12mm eyepiece. Then next was the Blue Flash, NGC 6905. Now, of course, I looked at some of the other normal planetaries that you viewed, with like M27, the Dumbbell, the Ring Nebula, like that, and they all look great like that. And I wanted to go for something a little more challenging, and I thought this would be a good one to go for. And I used a 7mm eyepiece, and it really lies in, of course, in a nice field again. And the refractor brought out a little bit of detail. You can actually see that pale blue color of it. And of course, the larger your scope, you really start getting more of an intense blue with it. I didn't see the central star like you see in this nice photograph, but I can see some variations of the planetary. So it really looked nice, and of course, it really looks neat. And you can see this neat line of stars that it's with. really looks neat in the eyepiece. But I thought the refractor did actually a really good job with it, and you can see slight variations in it. But I thought it was neat to be able to still pick up that color, which, like I said, you can use larger scopes. You can really gets more and more intense blue.
And I looked at it that night in my refractor. That was the one when I was star hopping to it.
Right.
I wasn't going north enough.
Right.
You remember?
Yeah, but he had a great view.
I persisted and got it, but I really liked the contrast between the intensity of the nebula compared to the pinpoint stars.
Right.
And the other planetary that I have in my presentation is a real faint, much fainter than this.
Right.
What's the magnitude on this?
It's around 11.1 or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
And by the way, for people who are watching, be watching this, Rob's refractor is slightly larger. It's a 140 millimeter APM, beautiful f7, right? It's a f7, beautiful refractor, gave great images, and it was neat to have the two ED refractors out that night, and that was one of the things that we both commented on both refractors, was that even though they're smaller telescopes to what we're used to, they're decent sized refractors for being refractors, but compared to our larger Dobbs, they're not. But the thing we really liked so much that night through both refractors of various objects was that great image contrast of the black background sky and the stars just pinpoint and just seem to pop. It's the magic of the refractor, and this was one of the objects I thought that really gave me a great view and showed that. Then a little later, it was M37, which I think is the best of the Messier clusters in Auriga, and it's just really a beautiful cluster, and you can see a lot of stars. It's really rich, kind of reminds you of that richness of what the wild duck is, M11. Maybe not quite as much, and it's not quite as bright, but it's really a beautiful cluster. And I used the 12 millimeter to get a really great view of it, where it resolved a lot of stars, but still had a lot of field around it. Just made for a really nice image. And you can really see one of the things you could notice is the brighter star that's towards the center, which is really neat. And that kind of stands out. And you see that in also the wild duck, where there's a brighter star towards the center. And then galaxies, and this was, of course, one of the towards the end of the night was NGC 488 in Pisces, and I did a galaxy. This is one of the galaxies I did for Galaxy Log, and it's a really nice, tightly wound spiral galaxy that lies in a really neat field where you have this, and I have it here in this near view image, where you have a neat line of stars and a bright star off to the east here. But here it is. I have it in the and this is the near view image I did for Galaxy Log, and I used a 7 millimeter eyepiece. It's 129 power, and you could see the bright, like in the photograph, you could see the bright stellar nucleus, and I could see that, and some variations of light around the outer part of it were gave it a little bit of a model effect. The core area a little bit brighter, of course, but it really looked really nice in the refractor. I thought it stood out really, really nice, and gave me a nice view. So that was one of my favorite galaxy views that night. I really liked that a lot. Great. This is a great galaxy to view in a large telescope. You can start picking out some detail, and because it has surface brightness is 13.4, and it is a bright galaxy. It's a little over 10th magnitude. but from a dark location, you have good dark skies in the Pisces area when it's up high, and you're using a larger telescope. You can really pump the magnification up and bring out some subtle detail in this galaxy. So it's a good one
Yeah,
to go
I'd
for.
like to look at that the next time we're out.
Yeah, you'll like
That's
it. It's a good galaxy. It's a good galaxy
really
for the larger
interesting
scopes.
galaxy. Yep.
Yeah, it really is. But like I said, it gave me a nice view in the 4.7-inch refractor. And then that's it for objects. But then we got new glass. Talk about this a little bit, because we want to, of course, talk about equipment and what we use and so on. And this is the just got this coming in last week, because I haven't got a chance to use it yet. It's the APM XWA 3.5 110-degree field eyepiece. I have the 5mm, which I really like a lot. Really a nice eyepiece. Same thing, 110. It's they kind of like play off what the ethos is. But these extra wide angle eyepieces are really good. I really enjoy the way, not only the image quality they bring, and of course having that huge field of view. And if you're using a Dob that it's not driven like that, these are sensational, because that object stays in that field for a long time. And it's really neat also, of course, if you're looking at like a galaxy cluster where there's a lot of galaxies, you can see them all in the same field of view. But yeah, I'm impressed. I mean, this is, of course, the same company that puts out your refractor like that, had the Beast, when I had the 8-inch refractor, the APM. Now Chris has the 13mm, which I really like a lot, and that might be my next purchase in eyepieces. And also their 30mm, which I think has a 70-degree field, which is really nice eyepiece. It's heavy, but it's really a nice eyepiece. So there is a lot of choices out there of quality eyepieces, and I do like this line. And like I said, I do have the 5, which I really like a lot, and so I'm excited to go out and for this upcoming dark window to check this eyepiece out and see what it can do.
Looks like it has a ton of eye relief.
Yeah, it's the same, I think, as the ethos. It's around 15mm, so
okay.
that's really nice. And of course, it's really neat to have to have the volcano top that they have. I had another one. I think it was a William Optics or something. It had more of didn't have the volcano top, and I found it much more difficult to. And that was a 5.5mm, I think it was 5mm, something like that. And I found it difficult to view with, because it was like where the bridge of my nose, and trying to see the entire field of view was really tough without having to tilt my head. Where with these volcano tops, you can go straight in and see the entire field. So of course, the ethos design was the first for that. And it was smart design, very smart design. But for the price like that, these guys are actually really good. I'm real impressed by them, and I think people who can't afford the ethos, this is a good alternative. It really is. I think these are really fine, and as I said, I'm anxious to try it out this coming dark window. So that's it for me. All right, Rob, you're up, man.
All right. Let me get this up here. Let's see. All right. So this is my night out with the 20-inch. This was before the refractor night, and even though we were into the early fall, I've been looking at some objects in Cygnus, which was still pretty high up, especially in the eastern part. So I went with some objects in Cygnus because just goes to show that even though it's a summertime object, it doesn't mean you can't find some really nice galaxies
Yep.
in there. So the first one I went to is this 7013, the 11th magnitude galaxy. I pushed it up to 254x. I didn't go higher than that. I think the transparency that night was average at times, a little above average other times, but for the most part, that was about the right magnification. But I really like this galaxy. It was much brighter than I thought it was going to be. Before I realized it was 11th magnitude galaxy. This field star above that it has a goldish tint to it, so it's kind of a nice contrast. This galaxy really had some a nice star field and good elongation to it. Very bright stellar nucleus, and reminded me of it reminds me of 1023 a little bit, just
Right.
just slightly, and it's bright like that.
Right.
So the nice thing about this is you get this a really full background star field in it too. Not too dissimilar to 1023, which has a nice star field in it too. But anyway, this is a really good galaxy to view in Cygnus. And I'd really recommend it. I know you like this galaxy.
Yeah. 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 It's not too far from the Veil Nebula, and I do like this galaxy a lot. It's interesting, like, because you don't think about it when you think of Cygnus. Of course, you think of all the star clusters, a lot of planetary nebulas, of course, the Veil, the North American Nebula, and so on. There's just so much, and kind of forget that there's actual galaxies there. You wonder though if this guy was out away in a more in a galaxy that was away from the plane of the Milky Way. It was out more, like, say, maybe in Ursa Major or something like that. It'd probably be a little brighter because there's probably some dust and so on from the Milky Way that may be dimming it a little bit. But yeah, for where it is, and it's really a good eye catcher. And like you mentioned, it's neat that it's in a rich field of stars. So you have this beautiful star field, and like you said, you have that one star there, right there on its tip, and it has slight color to it, especially when you look at it in a larger scope like your 20. And then the galaxy seems to be hanging off of it, and it does, like in this photograph here, has that broad core area like that. But you really study this galaxy, you can really see some nice extension with it. Yeah, it's really a neat galaxy. It's really neat.
Yeah, and I'd really like to see it next year under better conditions too.
Right.
But it was just like a really surprising view. It's like, oh my God, look at this. This is like a really bright galaxy that shows a lot of detail, and it's sitting right up there in Cygnus. It's like, what's it doing there? It's supposed to be over in Pegasus.
Right, it's supposed to be, right.
Yeah. So anyway, I really like that one. And the next galaxy I looked at was 6824. That had a nice stellar core, and you could see some elongation to it. It's a little fainter, 12th magnitude, but again, in a really nice star field, and a nice little surprise. I pushed this one. I did push this one up to 435x, but I don't think it was really a very good view. I think I was kind of hanging around that 6mm 254,
right,
for the main viewing.
Yeah.
But yeah, another nice little surprise in a summer constellation.
Yeah. I remember that night you called me over because when you got it, I'm thinking 68. I don't think I've ever looked at that galaxy before, and I was actually surprised. When I looked in the eyepiece, like, wow, that really stands out nice. you know?
It did. It was
Yeah, that
a
was,
beautiful sight. So
yeah.
it's kind of neat because I know there's galaxies in Lyra that you can pull up, but I don't think they're as bright as these two galaxies. I could be mistaken, but
Mm,
these guys really stood out. So I was happy to kind of say goodbye to Cygnus. I guess by the time we get out again, it might be worth checking these out, but
yep.
there's certainly more objects to be moving on to now this time of the year. And then the last object I looked at, I really like this object. This is
Yeah.
7048, a planetary nebula in Cygnus. Of course, Cygnus is just loaded with planetary
Right.
nebula. Um, but I like this one because I really like these faint planetaries, these kind of like the more ghost-like ones, even though
Right.
like the ring and the dumbbell are obviously, great objects and you can put high power on them and you can just kind of go to town with them. But there's something about the contrast of uh, the faint ghost-like planetary against the dark background of the Milky Way um, stars. So I really like this planetary, and it did show some modeling in it. I
Yeah.
think you can see that in this
Yeah.
photograph. It was almost like I think I was trying to look at that now. I can't remember. I have to look at my notes. I don't remember if I thought that it kind of reminded me of the Trifid or something. Like it was
Mm,
almost like broken into three
yeah.
segments. But anyway, this is a really cool planetary, and you could make you could make a list of your top 10 planetaries in Cygnus, and everybody could have 10 different
Right.
ones. There's so many of them,
Right.
but this one I don't think I had seen it before, so I was really pleased with the view,
Right.
and it's one that I'd recommend
That
if you've
it
not
was
seen it
when we
before.
looked at it, when you called me over that you had it like that, and I went in there and looked at your scope. It kind of reminded me a little bit of what you're seeing here as far as the nebula itself. What filter were
Mhm.
you using that night on that object? Do you remember what filter you had?
I think I just had a UHC filter in there.
PHC filter on that, yeah.
Yeah.
But it looked
I
really
don't think
good.
I had the
Yeah.
I don't think I had the Nebustar in there. I'm almost positive I
Okay.
didn't.
All right.
Um, yeah.
But it looked to me in my eyes of what I remember like that. Because that's one thing I have trained myself for, particularly doing Galaxy Lock for all these years, is like almost this photographic memory of thinking, okay, what did it look like in the eyepiece? I mean, I take all these
Mhm.
notes and stuff like that, but to actually, try to think, okay, is that what it looked like? Yeah, that's what it looked like to me, because that's when I do the near view image, I have to do it that way. I have to take what I see in the notes and everything I can do, and then just remember in my mind, okay, that's what it looked like. And
Mhm.
when I put the near view image together, I'm thinking, that's exactly what I saw. That's how it looked to me in the eyepiece. Like when we
Mhm.
just saw when I did for 88 in Pisces, the galaxy. To me, looking at this photograph and see this, when I looked in the eyepiece of your telescope, it kind of reminded me of what I'm seeing here in this photograph.
Yeah.
It is a
Yeah.
neat. It is a neat, and it's not tiny either. That's the thing that struck me right away.
No, it's not.
It's not real
It's
tiny.
actually
It's right.
I don't have the dimensions of it,
Right.
but it made an impressive view in the eyepiece.
Yeah, it did. It did.
Um, and then, like I said, that modeling was very, very distinctive.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd come back to this one again for sure.
Yeah. I think maybe November dark window if we get even darker sight. NGC 7048. So the 7000s are easily visible
Right.
for a good part of
Yep.
the night. Um, so yeah, it'd be a good one to go back
Yeah.
and play around with. So
So that's pretty much it for me. Those are my objects. I will have more fall/winter objects for the next get together.
yep,
But yeah, those even though they weren't the nights we were hoping for, they were still good nights. We
yeah,
had 2 nights. I had 2 nights with the 20 and one night with the refractor over the
yeah.
last
That would have
month or
been
so.
September, and then the one night in October. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, you know, the weather hasn't really been great for the East Coast. So hopefully now, you know, it'll start getting clear because it's going to be cold. So
Cold, of
that's,
course.
that's the trade-off. You can't get clear and warm. You get cloudy and warm and clear and cold. So I'll be gearing up for you know, the next few dark windows. We're going to be dressing warmly for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'll take clear and cold over cloudy and warm any day.
Absolutely.
Because there's nothing you can do when clouds are out there.
Yeah.
So. All right, Rob.
Yep. That's it.
All right. Thanks a lot, Rob.